Hi, guys. So we're being told stay home. Stay home, save lives. And if we don't stay home, then lives will be lost. We're putting lives on the line, lives at risk. We know that that's a complete lie. It's clearly not for our health that they want us to stay home. And therefore, the big question on our minds should be just why do they want us to stay home? What is their agenda hiding behind this constant message we're barraged with nonstop? Stay home, stay home. Why do they want us to stay home? So let us count the ways. First, let's know that this is a massive psyop. A psyop is a psychological warfare operation in which the government controls people secretly through deception. And the purpose is mass mind control. And this is accomplished in particular through sowing fear. Now, in the case of the stay home mantra, why does staying home create fear? Well, number one, the very fact that we're being told to stay home gives us the impression that there's a strong need to do so. The government would not tell us to do something so drastic and unprecedented without sufficient reason. They would never do a thing like that. We can trust that if this is what they tell us to do, it must really be necessary. So there must really be tremendous danger, a high risk from leaving the house. This disease must be so very deadly and contagious and destructive. It must be true. If we're told that we need to take these measures, well, there must be a basis to it. That's what one would naturally assume. Where there's smoke, there's fire. Now, the purpose of this fear that they create is that when you're in a state of fear, then you're susceptible to what you're being told. So, and you're susceptible to what you'll be told in the future. It converts you into a sort of a slave, a follower, a robot, someone who will obey the state and submit. Just like those who went willingly into the boxcars, like that. Now, specifically, how does staying home create this fear, this mind control? Well, firstly, it disrupts a person's schedule. His natural schedule involves leaving the house. Very few people literally never leave the house. Even people who are work from home typically leave the house for some reasons, not only to go shopping, but they go out for some reason. They don't literally always stay home. And certainly most people, the vast majority of people, don't spend all their time in the house. So therefore, telling people to stay home disrupts their normal schedule, and that weakens them psychologically. When your schedule is disrupted, you're disoriented, everything is topsy-turvy. You don't know whether you're coming or going. You don't have a structure. So that alone makes the person much more susceptible to the mind control of the government. It lowers their natural reasoning capabilities, so they're not firing on all cylinders. They're not functioning to full capacity, and therefore they're much more susceptible to the government's mind control. Next, their purpose is to destroy people's businesses, destroy small business, to destroy medium-sized businesses, even to destroy large businesses. Ultimately, they appear to be expanding these monopolies, these super gigantic, monstrous businesses, so that they will swallow up all the smaller ones. So that appears to be an agenda, this predatory financial agenda. And also because when your business is destroyed, that's very traumatic. So the destruction of your private business or the loss of your job because the business for which you were employed had to shut down and it looks like it will never start up again, that it alone creates trauma aside from any direct financial gain to big companies. The goal here is the trauma, the pain, the fear. And another point is that when you've lost your business, then you're much more dependent on the state. And we see here how even Trump is a Republican, and supposedly Republicans oppose government handouts. They constantly preach about how socialism is destructive for society. But here, suddenly the Republican conservative candidate comes out with these big government handouts. So what the loss of your business does is that it gives power to the government to swoop in and save you, and therefore the government becomes controls you. You become dependent on the state for your needs. And now we see that even people waiting in bread lines, which is completely unprecedented. That's what's done in these like third world socialist countries like Venezuela, not in America. But now they've degraded us to this point where we're just so dependent on the state. That's where these lowlives want us, dependent on them, because we've been crushed. We've been our pride, our independence has been robbed of us. Next, they want to create pain by subjecting people who are otherwise productive and would never dream of taking money for unemployment, subjecting them to this degradation of collecting unemployment, and in general to being idle. These are people who want to go out and work and contribute to society, and instead they're laying idle, and this is very traumatic for them. They feel very affected by this. They and this puts them in a much more primitive level of functioning, which is exactly where the government wants them. Okay, the agenda is to create trauma through being separated from our loved ones, our friends and family, not our extended family. And when you're in contact with someone over electronics, it's all very well, and if you're anyway living far away from that person, then that's great. Now you're able to contact someone at a great distance and maintain your connection with them, and that's fantastic. But if it's someone who's living around the corner and you're not able to have a face-to-face connection with them, well, that's terrible. That's that's that is traumatic for a person that is deprived of having contact with his community and with his extended family, with his friends and acquaintances. Okay. Now, they also want to weaken us physically, weaken our health. If we don't go outside, we don't get fresh air, well, that's very bad for us. Uh, we don't get vitamins that we need that only come through being exposed to the sunlight. Now, I know many places have allowed you to walk outside for exercise, but um, I would imagine that many people, because they're kind of uh, depressed by the situation, are not taking that opportunity to get that exercise. And the government knows that. It knows that even if you let people exercise, people won't do it. And that's all part of this operation to weaken people. And in this case, physically through lack of exercise and lack of fresh air and sunlight. Next, they want to traumatize people who have children but aren't used to watching their kids all day. Watching kids is a tremendously challenging job, and if you're not used to it, it's it's really difficult to be to have that thrust on you, and that can also create lots of conflict when people don't have the chance to take a break, to get a breather, to get some me time. So that can uh, also, for those who have children, weaken the person, and therefore that furthers the agenda of the mind control. They don't want us to go outside. They want us to stay home because they don't want to see us, to see how they're setting up 5G towers here, there, and everywhere, in particular in schools and in community centers and near big buildings with lots of offices, where there will be a tremendous number of people exposed to this 5G radiation. They don't want that. We should notice that that's being done under our noses and we're not being consulted. We don't even have the opportunity to protest about it because we're not around. They also want us to stay inside so we won't go out and protest. Now, people, thank God, are going out and protesting to a limited degree. Well, that's good, but they're only protesting the fact that there's still a lockdown, but there are not protests related to various laws that are being passed. Still now, the Constitution gives the people the right to protest, to gather, to assemble for the sake of, in particular, for the sake of a political protest related to the laws that are being passed, so that they can make their voices heard, they can air their concerns, and it's very wrong for the government to continue to pass laws without the people having the opportunity to go out and protest against laws that they object to. So that's another one of their agendas. They want to be able to pass various controversial and really destructive laws without the people protesting because they're not able to. Next, they want us to be trapped in front of the television. People have the news on, they're watching the news, non-stop, constant reports about the latest developments. And in this way, the people are exposed to the propaganda that the government, the CIA controlled media, Mockingbird media, is programming you, so they'll be much more in line with the government agenda. And even though we have YouTube, we have the alternative media, but we see in recent weeks very dramatic censorship on YouTube. Anything that goes against the official story of COVID-19 is being taken down from YouTube. Doctors not even saying particularly harsh things. They're not saying this is an inside job, a conspiracy. All they're saying is that questioning the wisdom of the lockdowns, of social distancing, and so on. These videos are being taken down by YouTube. Certainly, videos associating 5G with COVID-19 are being taken down by YouTube. And I heard one YouTuber say in a very roundabout way that there was a certain topic that she couldn't discuss because if she would, then she would get her channel taken down. And she said that it had to do with phones, which meant 5G. So she couldn't even say what the topic was that she couldn't talk about because she was told by YouTube that this topic will be reason for a ban or maybe a strike against her channel. So people are stuck in front of the media, and therefore they are susceptible to the mind control that is spread by the government, by these sinister forces in the deep state through the mass media. Next, the reason they want us to stay home is so we'll be forced to engage constantly with electronics. When we are using electronics, as I am right now, everything we do is tracked and recorded. Our phone calls, people with whom we would have been able to meet in person, now we must communicate with via the phone. We must have meetings, Zoom meetings. That's all being tracked and recorded. So the government is gathering information on us to a much greater degree because we interact with people through electronics, and that also serves the government agenda of control. Why do they want us to stay home? So that's all as relates to the current situation. But really, they have a more long-term agenda. What will be, probably not too long, when the lockdowns are lifted, but then they will come and demand that we submit to tests, that we submit to vaccines, that we submit to blood tests, saliva tests, which will all be questionable, not just about their accuracy and effectiveness, but about whether there's some kind of other agenda. For example, the tests may themselves contain coronavirus. They may be collecting our DNA. I've heard some say that the tests give a person HIV. The vaccines will certainly contain toxins. But we'll remember those days when we were cooped up in the house and how difficult it was for us and how painful it was for us to see our life savings lost and our businesses destroyed, and for employers to have to tell their employees that they no longer have a job, or for employees to be told that the company they work for is going out of business. The trauma of all of this, and of the idleness, of the conflict in the family because of being cooped up, the trauma from constant viewing of fear-based mind control in the media. Oh, it's so scary looking at this image of this ball with the spikes coming out like some alien. All of this created an imprint of trauma, and we will have PTSD, and we will remember how much we suffered. True, other people in history have suffered worse, but that's beside the point. For us, in our times, this is incredibly painful. It's the most painful, it's certainly the most painful collective experience we've ever had. Far more painful than the only other experience that comes close, which was that of 9/11, which was an inside job, a worldwide mass mind control operation, a psychological warfare operation. That was just a warm-up for this. So we will remember how much we suffered during these weeks, and we will reflexively cooperate with whatever the government tells us to do, because we won't want to go back to that very painful place we were when we were cooped up in our house. So we will have become enslaved and mind controlled into compliance. We'll submit to mandatory testing, vaccines, and all these other infringement of our liberties that they certainly have already come up with. So my message is, don't listen to the edict, stay home, save lives. No, it's the exact opposite. Whatever they tell you, it's the opposite. Staying home endangers your health. It's leaving the home that saves lives. Get out of the house. Do something outside the house. If they want you to stay home, then you know the best thing for you is to do the exact opposite. Get out of the house. Go to a friend's house. Go to a park for exercise. Drive around and say that you're going to a store. If a policeman would stop you, say you're on your way to the store. Do anything that's not discouraged. That's discouraged, but still technically allowed. Get out of the house. And certainly there's no problem in having contact with people. That's not an issue. That's all propaganda. But that's not my point here. My point is, when they say to stay home, they have a nefarious agenda. So therefore, don't conform. When you're conforming, even if you know what they're really up to, or at least you know that you're certainly being lied to, and there's certainly a sinister agenda here. You may not be sure fully what it is, but you know that it's very bad news. It's not enough to know that. You have to take action. You have to go out and do the opposite of what they're telling you, because in that way you release yourself from this mental prison in which they want to put you. So long as you're cooperating, you're their slave. It doesn't matter if you understand that they want to own you through this. That's important. But that's not enough. You have to break free of this control by taking some kind of action, tangible action, to not stay home. God bless.